Welcome to the Timescales Updates. I'm Grego, and today I have a very special guest, my Doctor Who buddy. Right here, we have the writer, musician, composer, and public speaker, none other than the extraordinary Gaelynn Lea. Hi,
Oh,
Gaelynn. How are you?
hi, good. Thanks for having me on again. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, yeah, and thank you so much for allowing me to meet with you like this again. Um, because I have a pressing question that has to do with Doctor Who, and that is going to be Davros Gate and the representation of disabilities in Doctor Who. And I really want your opinion because I'm curious, and I have absolutely no idea what you're going to say. So so this ought to be fun.
Yeah. Well, I first of all loved that skit, the Children in Need skit. I thought it was
Mhm.
hilarious. So like, let's just start there. I'm not. I mean, I think it's fun to talk about canon, but I thought it was hilarious the invention of the word Dalek coming from the Doctor and the plunger and all that stuff. I just thought it was genius. So I loved the skit no matter what. And then in
Right.
terms of Davros being portrayed as somebody who could walk and then, you know, isn't in his like traditional wheeled mechanism. I wouldn't call it a wheelchair. I
Mhm.
know that that's the
Right.
term that's being
Right.
thrown around. Personally, I don't really think of it as a wheelchair. However, I'm fine with it. Like, here's the truth. I I have always long believed that disability, I mean, just what Russell T said, and I know he got a lot of flack for it, but like disability is often portrayed as like it makes someone bitter and angry and or therefore, they're mad about their lives, so therefore they turn into this evil character. It doesn't mean that that's what they were doing with Davros 100% like intentionally, but it's such a common theme, like seeing disability as negative, that I'm fine with them taking it out. I wouldn't die on the hill of um they had to, or I think what I'm excited about is Davros showing up in this different form and then introducing another disabled character who's cool, who works at Unit, Shirley Ann Bingham. So
Mhm.
I do think we need to go in a better direction. My personal thought, and again, I think the creator gets to create how they want, and I don't really. The more I get into Doctor Who, and I realize how controversial like every decision that the showrunner makes is, because it's true. Like everything kind of gets put under this magnifying glass. Is like I do think the creators should get to just kind of build the world that they want on some level, and like we're just there for the ride. I'm not writing the show,
Mhm.
so I was fine with the change. I thought that it would have been cool to build it into the story that this was before an accident, because I think he had some sort of accident, right? I mean, I'm not a huge classic Who person, but I was told that Davros had an accident, and then that's when he ended up, using the chair thing and being on life support. And to me,
Mhm.
that is fine. Like I don't think every character who has a disability has to be always good either. Like I just think having
Right. Right.
representation is there. But I did like seeing him in a younger form walking around, because it reminds you that, just like when Peter Capaldi in the newer series met the young Davros. I'm sure you've probably seen that episode where he met the
Mhm.
young Davros, that he was just a kid one time. He was just a person, and then he gradually developed into this more menacing and evil character. And I just think that makes him more interesting. So, if anything, I was happy to
Okay.
see a more interesting view of Davros. Now, I was surprised and kind of disappointed how heated it got and how upset some people were, because I feel like
Right.
if somebody's trying to do a good job kind of righting some of the wrongs in media, which has, there's been a lot of bad stereotypes in the media, not just disability. I wish that we could just be a little more supportive of that as a culture generally. Like it doesn't even, not even just about disability, but about anything, race and gender. And there's a lot of things that got perpetuated that aren't helpful and make people feel bad and aren't really great. And if somebody's trying to make it better, I think I wish that we could just get behind that at all. Even if we don't have to love it, not everybody likes the Timeless Child, right? But you can
Right.
still say that was a cool creative decision, and I feel that way about Davros. What did you think? And
Okay.
do you have any like
Well,
feedback from that? I'm sorry to just keep talking, but I had a lot
no,
on
no,
my
no,
mind
no.
again.
This is exactly what I wanted to hear right here.
Yeah.
What do I think about it? Well, when it was announced, it was back in November, and I saw something on Twitter where I thought it was a joke, and I couldn't really read up on it right then. I was busy, and throughout the day, I got to thinking, I'm like, wow, why would somebody start a rumor like that? Because if that's a joke or intended to be, it's really in poor taste. And
Hmm.
so finally, I had time to look and see what is actually going on here, and I was totally on the fence. And this I didn't know what to think, and this went on for several days where Davros Gate was trending on Twitter.
Hmm.
In fact, and then I called a friend of mine that uses a wheelchair down in Florida, and asked her, what do you think about this? Have you ever thought that Davros was in a wheelchair? And she goes, no. She goes, I never once thought that in my life. And and I said, well, so this is wrong. Am I correct to believe this is wrong? And she just started laughing. She goes, Greg, you take Doctor Who way too seriously. And 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 I'm like, yeah, okay. I said, but it's the Daleks, for God's sake. And she just started laughing. So she was pretty unfazed by it. But it goes back to this. Here, let me get my glasses and read this. I didn't want to misquote this. So if you want to make sure that you are quoting something correctly, what do? Go to a British historian. This right, and this right here is from British historian Michael Herbert, where he has sent this to me. So therefore, I know this is correct. Okay, this uh, was from the BBC Three companion series called Doctor Who Unleashed, which you and I don't get that here because it's not on Disney. Um, and it is from November 18th of 2023. And it says right here, and this is quoting Russell T Davies, the showrunner. We had long conversations about bringing Davros back because he's a fantastic character. But time and society and culture and taste has moved on. And there's a problem with the Davros of old in that he's a wheelchair user who is evil. Now, that to me is like I said, very surprising because I never ever once considered uh Davros or Daleks to be using wheelchairs. Did you ever?
See, that's interesting you say that. I did think about Davros being kind of problematic even before this came up. I
Really?
I I like Davros. I'm not opposed to the story of Davros, but there aren't a lot of characters in Doctor who have any kind of physical differences. You don't have to necessarily call them disabilities, but you know what I mean. And the fact that one of the longest standing villains clearly has is on some kind of life support. And then there's like Max
Mhm.
Capricorn from Voyage of the Damned. Like there's not a lot of great portrayal of disability in Doctor Who. So that it didn't like bother me. Like I didn't lose any sleep over it. But I definitely was like, too bad there's not better characters that like, if you were gonna cosplay, like I cosplayed a Dalek. I didn't cosplay Davros because I don't really feel like the Davros speaks to me in like a it's just kind of like the way it's always been is you have a bad guy, he's got a deformity or whatever and like he's evil and it's just not that creative. I personally, to be completely honest, feel like what I wish the BBC would do, and maybe they've been doing it behind the scenes, is I think they should hire more disabled people to help like talk about this stuff, because if it was up to me, what I would have done as showrunner, which we all talk about this like we own the show, right? Like we can do whatever we want, but if it was me,
Mhm.
I would show Davros walking the way that he did, but I wouldn't take away the current story of Davros either. Like one of my favorite episodes is when he tells Peter Capaldi that he's dying and he comes and he gets Peter Capaldi to give him some regeneration energy. I think that was a great episode. I don't need Davros to be different in this time, but I like showing him in the different phases of his life. And what I think is the most important, which maybe I think what the reason I cut Russell T Davies some slack is at least he's trying. Most people aren't even trying to get disability on screen or even talk about it. Like I really
Mhm.
respect what he's doing, so I'm not upset. It's I wouldn't necessarily need to have no more Davros stories where he's using the life support system. Like I don't mind it like personally, but I think that what I do want to see, which is what I am seeing, is people like Shirley and Bingham. I want to see her go in that new wheelchair accessible TARDIS. That's more important to me than the Davros thing. Like, but I must say, I did think, dang, too bad Doctor Who doesn't ever have any cool disabled characters. The only one you can count is Davros, and he is kind of sucky. And it's just a lack of diversity, really. And so I was excited to see Shirley and Bingham more than I was concerned about Davros. And I guess I would just ask people like, in the way that we change the show has changed a lot, even in the last 5 years to be more diverse intentionally. And yeah, it's a change, but if it's like for a good reason to make people like oh, the best thing I ever read on YouTube comments was a comment by a man who is watching the new series, the new specials with his 4-year-old daughter, and he said he had actually not watched any of the Chibnall era because he was mad that the doctor was a woman. He felt like that's screwing with the story too much. Like that was just his view. And he said,
Mhm.
and so I hadn't watched it in many years, but of course I loved David Tennant and Catherine Tate, so I tuned in for the specials. And then when the psychic paper said, "Oh, it says Grand Mistress," like they got the gender wrong, his daughter had a question about like, well, why did it say Mrs. Like on the psychic paper, and he said, well, the doctor used to be a woman, but now it's this guy, and trying to explain regeneration to this little girl, and he said he was so surprised that her eyes got big, and she said, "You mean I could be the doctor?"
Oh,
And
no way.
he said it
What?
just instantly. He's like, "Oh, I get it. Like that's why they're doing this. Like they're doing it because otherwise she never sees herself as like a part of the story." And that's how I feel about disability too. Like I really want to see a doctor with a genetic disability because then even if he like regenerated to heal himself or herself or themselves or whatever, like they would still be disabled because it would be written into their gene code. So you could have a disabled doctor. Like I want to see that because then I could be the doctor. Like I think that we all want to be seen in TV, and I honor that Russell T Davies is trying to do that, and I just think it's cool, and I wish people could like have that aha moment where they recognize, yes, it's different for them. It might feel kind of forced or fake or weird, but if you don't ever try it, if you never expand the story to include other people's like identities in there, then you're leaving all these people out who like will never feel this connection to the doctor that you probably do feel when you watch it. You know what I mean? So this little girl totally changed his view. He said he like almost started crying and he like couldn't. He was like, I can't believe I actually thought that was bad to have a female doctor. It was like an eye opening moment for him, and that's how I feel about seeing a ramp in the TARDIS. I got all choked up, and I saw an interview with Shirley about it too, and she started crying. Like it is important to be like, yes, this show is for us, and we can
Mhm.
imagine ourselves in that world. But if you go to a TARDIS that has stairs everywhere, I know I watch that show differently than you probably because whenever I see the old TARDISes with all the stairs, part of me is like, dang it, I could never get in there. You know what I mean? So I think moving
Wow.
forward is actually for the betterment, like just to make it a more welcoming like place. So I just wish people would like allow themselves the room to kind of say, yes, this makes me uncomfortable, but I want more people to feel like they could be part of this world too. And you can't really feel that way if it doesn't include you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely unbelievable. Wonderful answer, Galen. And I didn't know what you were going to say, but I knew it was going to be kind. And that is such a wonderful way of putting it. When Suddenly the Doctor was portrayed by a female actress.
Mhm.
Um, I thought that this is absolutely wonderful.
Oh, you did?
And
Okay, cool.
yeah, I did. I did. And you know why? Is
What?
because I thought maybe there are girls out there, or maybe little kids, that don't feel as if they could ever be the Doctor because the Doctor
Mhm.
is a man. And just for that simple reason right there, I thought this is awesome. Finally, there is a female doctor, so little girls can feel like they're in Doctor Who as well.
Mhm.
And apparently, you have run across an instance of that. So,
Yeah, it was a
okay.
really powerful thing, and, same thing with, like, I know that some people got all upset about Shooty's kilt skirt thing, whatever, like,
Yeah.
I think I'm like, "Dudes, let's just chill and be like, there are people who identify as non-binary, and they deserve to be part of this universe too." I really feel
Yes.
like, let's just make it fun for everyone. Nobody's saying that everybody's all of a sudden gonna be a completely different character, like, I think they're
Mhm.
trying. I think I actually did a panel, so I went to a Doctor Who convention, and I really
I
went
was going to ask about
all
that.
in.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, it was amazing. I went to the Minneapolis console room, and Sylvester McCoy was there, and John Davy. He plays a lot of the Cybermen. It was a very fun weekend, and the I had a panel discussion where we were talking about um, just the Chibnall era and how I believe personally that people are going to look back and have a lot more praise for it than they have. I mean, I don't like all the writing. Like I'm not going to pretend that I do. I think some of the
Mhm.
dialogue felt really forced and I couldn't tell if it was the writing or the acting, but like there were parts that I felt took me out of the story, but overall, the thing that I think he's going to get praised for that we haven't recognized yet is he really did push the boundaries of who is welcome in this universe, who could be in the stories, whose stories could be told. I guess I didn't know this, but one of the panelists on that discussion is from England, and he said they don't learn about, that story in India, Pakistan, that division thing. They don't learn about that in
Yeah.
school. Like that
Yeah.
is a big deal for them to be talking about it. So what I'm trying to say is that is an example of it is awkward, it is weird to start new conversations, to know that some people will be offended no matter what you do. Some people are going to raise their hand like me and be like, hey, maybe you should have more disability consultants on the show so that we can like help make the
Right.
dialogue feel more real. Like, there's going to be this awkward transition period, but it's worth going through because you never get to a better version of the show without that transition. And so he was the transition phase. And I hope to see, I really want to see a disability consultant on Doctor Who just so that like Shirley's lines feel authentic and just so that the you can see someone in the TARDIS and like just know what that does for the disability community. I think it would be fun, but I still
Okay.
acknowledge that he's doing a good job trying to shift it in a new direction. I think it's really fun.
Okay. All right. So I agree. I had never thought of that. Should the show have a disability consultant? And I do know that you would like to interview Russell T Davies, and
Yes, I would.
yeah, and I think that he should talk to you. So Russell, if you're out there, here is an opportunity for you, and you need to get a hold of Gaelynn, please. So anyone watching this, if you have Russell T Davies's email address, can you please send this to him? Okay. Okay.
Yes, thank
So,
you.
all right. So, Galen, tell us about the convention. You said you were on a panel, and then you did cosplay. I love the Dalek cosplay. And you said Sylvester McCoy was there.
Yeah, it was actually super fun. So I've never done cosplay before. This was my very first time in because I went to the convention last year, but I was sort of a fly on the wall watching things. And this year I took a more active role and I like led some panels and got all dressed up and I decided to get dressed as a Dalek, which is funny. That's what I mean is I don't the evil person in a wheelchair thing doesn't bother me, obviously, because I wouldn't have gone as a Dalek. But I thought it was hilarious that I'm in this wheelchair and I could tape a plunger and a whisk to my chair,
I
which
loved
I
the
did.
whisk.
I mean, it was hilarious. And I just like, loved, like, it's a funny, like, okay, so one time for Halloween, I went as Snow White and I had my band because I'm a musician and I had a show on Halloween. I had my band dressed as the Seven Dwarfs. So I like messing with like stereotypes. So I was the small one and they were like the big ones, but they were dressed as the dwarfs and I was Snow White. So like that kind of thing, like I like messing with identity, like just kind of making fun of it. So I was a Dalek and I was at a Q&A with Sylvester McCoy and he's very active and he doesn't like to stay on the stage. So he got down and he was asking everybody, the questions right to their face with their microphone or whatever. And he bumped into me on accident and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then he's like, "Wait, you're my enemy," because I was dressed as a Dalek. So we had this little exchange because of my Dalek costume. And it was just a really great, I mean, the convention in Minneapolis, at least, I can't speak for other ones, but it's pretty small. It's like maybe 500 people, but 500 loyal Doctor Who fans all getting together to like talk, and it's small enough where you can get involved. I think I led 8 panels or something, like a lot of them,
Wow.
and just got right in there because they always need more volunteers, and I feel like it was a great way to like kind of get into that world just a little bit. I love watching the behind the scenes whenever they release clips, about how they make the show. So having the guy who John Davy, he played like 50 different monsters. You hardly ever see his face. Once in a while he's a unit soldier, but usually he's a monster with a giant costume on. But it's just fun to hear about how that show works behind the scenes and all this. I don't know. It's just really, it was a fun weekend, and I definitely am going to go back. I really want to go to Gallifrey 1 someday, but
Mhm.
it's a pretty big commitment, so I haven't done it yet.
Right. Yeah. And that's coming up here pretty soon. I definitely want to go down to that one of these days or one of these years. And we already had prior commitment. And I
Oh,
found out that a British writer, Georgia Cook, is going to be there. Who
oh,
she was one of the very first people that I ever did an interview with, and
oh,
she
cool.
found out, yeah, and I found out she's going to be coming to not only America and not only California. And I wish I had known that earlier, and I probably would have tried to harder to make it down there to Gallifrey. So,
Yeah.
that 500 people. That sounds like a pretty intimate venue. And did, have you gone to very many conventions?
No, I literally went to that one only last year, like in 2023. So January 2023, we went because it was on my birthday, and and they were requiring masks, which was cool because I'm pretty
Mhm.
careful, and I wanted to be in a place that was, also careful. And so we went for the first time, and it's small, but it was actually bigger this year than last year. So this year we went back, and yeah, it had grown. It was about 500 people, and it's a big hotel, so it doesn't feel very crowded. It's very chill. Like Sophie Aldred actually basically told Sylvester McCoy that he had to do it because she was the guest of honor last year, and
Mhm.
she was like, "Nope, you're gonna love it." Everybody, because Minnesota is very friendly and it's a small, low key convention, and so it's not, you actually get to talk to people. And so she's like, "You're
Right.
gonna go, and you're gonna like it." So she made him say yes, which is great because it was really really fun, and he's a really interesting. Like I just love. I interviewed him, or like I asked him a question during the interview part about the difference between acting on stage and film and television, and
Mhm.
he had some really cool insights. I just think the acting part of it is another thing I'm learning to love a lot about Doctor Who, is just the actual making of the show is so interesting. I mean, I don't know if it
Yeah.
interests you, but I think it's really fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. In fact, I'm hoping that once the most recent specials come out on DVD, I'm hoping that part of that unleashed behind the scenes material is on there because I am absolutely fascinated with the making of the show. Um,
Yeah.
and wow, you talk about being around some absolutely wonderful actors. Sophie, you met Sophie Aldred also?
Yeah, she gave me a hug last
Yeah.
year.
Oh,
Got a hug.
nice.
I know I'm inching my way into the universe. Like I really want
Right.
to eventually, get to. I don't know. I want to compose for them someday. That would be my dream job in the world. But Murray Gold's great, so I don't want his job. I want to wait till he retires or something.
All right. Okay. Well, when Russell T Davies calls you, and let's hope he does, I think he really needs to because it's an opportunity for him that he
Or a
should take advantage
disability.
of.
Like, yeah, I
Uh,
do think that he would benefit from talking to more disabled people because we don't all have the same
mhm,
opinion. Like your friend didn't notice, but or didn't think of Davros in a chair, and I did, and I think there's
mhm.
differences. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to get more than a couple opinions on a topic. I don't think that I'm necessarily the right opinion, but I think that it's good to
Mhm.
have a variety of where you're getting your thoughts about an issue. It's like you can't just like walk up to one person who's black and assume that you have the whole story in the same way that you can't do that with disability. Like you really
Right.
have to like take some time to hear from different perspectives and kind of put it together and learn as much as you can. I mean, I commend him for doing stuff though about it. I think it's very fun to watch the change in the show.
Okay. Absolutely awesome, Galen. Thank you so much. And while I've got you here, how's your memoir coming along?
Oh yeah, it's actually going really well. So the memoir, I'm excited that we're talking about this because I'm writing a memoir. It's due basically like the rough draft is due at the end of August, and then I have until like about October to get it like really finalized. And I was really struggling to write regularly, and I must say this is so weird that we're talking about this, but I read A Writer's Tale by Russell T Davies, like that
Mhm.
book about how he wrote season 4. Have you read it?
I have it, and I absolutely want to read that. Now that I know you're reading it,
Oh,
I'm gonna
it
read it
was
too.
great. Like I read it all. I mean, it's pretty long, but it was first of all, season 4 is like a classic. Like Donna Noble, that series is a great series. And so
Mhm.
what he did is he basically chronicled making it from start to finish, like all the way through all the specials till David's regeneration. And what he writes about, I mean, I got a lot out of that book because he talks about how people think he's so busy because he says he's writing, and a lot of the time he's just like staring into space, like panicking. And so, like that feeling, I related to that a lot. And but then,
Right.
you know, kind of recognizing that everybody who's a creative doesn't have this like necessarily they get up at 8 a.m. and sit and write for 4 hours. Like, it's okay to have weird schedule and do it your own way. But I think helping kind of like letting go of some of that guilt of like feeling like, oh, I might be not doing it right. After reading his book, it kind of gave me this permission to just be like, no, I can do it however I want. That's how anyone writes is they just do what comes natural to them. And so I've actually been able to start a more regular writing routine, and it's been going really pretty well. Like I have about 40% of it done. I mean, I
Mhm.
have to edit it, of course, and then I'm just gonna
Right.
keep. I'm trying to do 2 chapters a month, and then every like week or two, I'm gonna send a little excerpts out to the Substack paid people, so that it's not publicly searchable. But I wanna share little updates of actual writing samples, kind of what he did in the writer's tale. It's really fun to see a behind the scenes of like how somebody thinks of. I mean, there's so many things in that. Like he was gonna have Voyage of the Damned be a not Voyage of the Damned, even worse, Waters of Mars was gonna be a Christmas special. That would have been the worst Christmas special in the universe
Oh.
because it's so sad. And so it's just kind of fun to see these first iterations of like what he was thinking, and then what actually ended up happening are not the same. Like it really evolved a lot. It gave me permission to kind of like let go of this linear idea that it has to be linear. I don't know. It was a very helpful book to read as I'm writing this
Okay.
memoir.
So you were inspired by and got a little bit of education on writing from Russell T
A
Davies and his
lot.
own writing.
Honestly,
Wow.
I would really recommend it to anyone who's a writer. And I don't write TV, but it's all the same. I mean, creativity and starting with nothing and creating something out of nothing, it's all sort of the same DNA. And so I found it extremely helpful. And he's so honest about it, which is good because I think as somebody who's kind of a perfectionist, which I am, I felt like a lot of guilt that I wasn't maybe doing it right somehow. And you realize by the end of the book, you're like, nope, he's doing awesome things and it doesn't have to look a certain way. He
Mhm.
admits like he's like this is not a healthy thing. It's like smoke a million cigarettes and like panic and then stay up all night and finish it like right before it's due is like was his typical MO. I would love to interview him now just to see how it's changed because it's been like 15 years, and I imagine he isn't the same exact guy that he was when he wrote that book. So I'd like to know if his routine has changed at all, and like how his writing is, like if he's gotten better at like having a schedule, or if he still kind of puts it all off and then does it in one big burst. I think we all change. Like I did that in college for sure. I think I wrote like 20 pages in my last like 3 weeks of college. 20 papers. I mean, it was ridiculous. I put everything off till the last second, and then it was terrible. I was like, I'm never going back to school. It was
you,
not scary.
you know, what I would really love to see is I would like to see you interview Russell T Davies, because that right there would be an absolutely fascinating conversation, not just for the both of you, but for anyone to see. And I hope, I have got my fingers crossed, and I would absolutely love to see that.
It'd be so fun.
Now, yeah, now you moved to Substack, and
Mm-hmm.
I want everyone who's watching or listening to thank Gaelynn for her time today. Maybe now we can just put this whole Davros Gate thing to rest. I'm actually I'm not going to give it any more thought. If it's for the better, it's for the better, and if it's
Okay.
more inclusive, that's for the better. So
Yep.
thank Gaelynn for her time, and go over and check her out on Substack. She recently moved over to Substack. I had heard of Substack, but I had never gone to look at it until Gaelynn moved over there. And I thought, okay, well, it's time to learn something new. Let's go jump on Substack. And I very much enjoy her content. Substack to me, it looks a little bit like Twitter, and I was surprised. And
It's like the
we're gonna
best of
put
both worlds.
yeah, no doubt. And we're going to put a link right down here below. So if you have enjoyed this conversation, thank Gaelynn for her time, and go check out her Substack, and you may very well find something that you will enjoy. Gaelynn, thank you very much. You've answered the question. I had no idea what you're going to say, but I knew it was going to be kind. So
Oh,
I think that people should enjoy hearing this point of view.
oh,
And
thanks.
yep. So, are you excited about the new Shooty Gatwa era coming up?
Yes, yes, uh, yes. I, it's a different energy. It's like a younger energy. I'm 40 now, so I'm an old woman, and I was like, wow,
That's
everybody
right.
feels
Belated
young,
happy
and it's
birthday.
thank you, and it's a younger energy, but I like it, and I love that you already know that there's some long-standing mysteries, like, Shooty walks out of the TARDIS the first time crying, and then the second time he's not crying, and so, like, and then the Mrs. Flood, who the heck is that? Like, he did a
Right.
really great job, I think, setting up in that first episode, like, the fact that not only is this a whole new set of characters and there's all these new possibilities, but also that there's some mysteries already. Like, even in the first episode, we have I love those kind of things. Like I miss having mysteries to solve. So I'm a totally very much excited. I mean, I love any Doctor Who. So I mean I'm all for it, but this is gonna
Okay.
be a fun
Awesome.
ride.
I have a little bit of a theory on Mrs. Flood.
Ooh, what is it?
Since we now have bi regeneration, I think Mrs. Flood may actually be the bi-regenerative version of the first Doctor, William Hartnell. And only for
Oh.
a very simple reason. There was a Christmas episode where the actor William Hartnell broke the third wall, and he looked right into the camera and made a statement. And I believe I should go back and look again to make sure, but I believe that Mrs. Flood also broke the
Oh
third
yeah, she
wall
did. Yep.
and looked. Didn't she? Yeah. Okay. So maybe she's the first Doctor.
That would be
I'm all for
cool.
that.
I
Yeah.
am. I love it. I just think it's fun to have mysteries, and I think she's a really great. I mean, she's got good energy. It's going to be fun to watch her do more damage. It sounds like she doesn't sound like a
Right.
good guy. So yes.
Do you think that she has the Celestial Toymaker's gold tooth that has the master inside?
Oh, I've heard a couple theories. I think that's a possibility, but I think there's this one costume that was released, and I don't remember the name of the character. The person who has like a piano key dress neck, like, or suit or something. There's some bad villain that has red nails as well. That was like a
Right.
photo was released, so it could be them. I definitely think the master is coming back somehow. I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if everybody bi-generated? I don't know. Could it be like, I don't know, even like Missy point two? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know how this bi-generation thing works. Again, I'm here for the ride. I was a little skeptical of the bi-generation. I was like, oh, but what I love about Doctor Who is when the Doctor does regenerate, it's like he dies kind of, and it is like a poignant moment to have them kind of like leave. However, again, I didn't write the show. If I,
Right.
like, I'm okay with it, and I think it's kind of fun now that there are these other possibilities, and so we'll see. I think it could also be, my theory is, my weird theory of the day is, I think baby Lulu Bell is the master or
Oh,
something.
really?
Like maybe, I mean, I this could be way off base. It probably is, but I think that the Lulu Bell or is something to do with Time Lords, because everybody else thought her name was horrible, and Shooty was like, "I love that name. What a great name!" And he felt this like response to the baby, like very like 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 really felt moved by this baby, and I just feel like
Hmm.
maybe there's some
I think you're on
connection.
to,
I could
yeah,
be wrong.
I think you're onto something there. I never thought of that. That is entirely possible.
Well, I
And
owe copyright Paul Tressler. My husband was like, I think it's a Time Lord. Why does he love that name so much? Otherwise, he wouldn't love
right.
that name. So I can't take total credit for that theory. That's my husband's theory.
Okay. So Paul came up with that.
Yeah, he's smart. I mean, honestly, it's fun. I'm really glad that he got us into the show, and it's been fun to have a person to watch him all with, because we go deep sometimes, as you do.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
yep. So, yep. My wife and I absolutely love watching it. We've watched Doctor Who together since we met, and I
Oh,
thought, wow, this lady likes Doctor Who. Hmm. That's
should probably
cool.
get married.
Yeah, right. All right, Galen. Hey, thank you so much. And everyone, go down to the link below, check out Galen's Substack, and let's see what happens when these new episodes start airing. And I think we're in for a fun ride. And I think it's wonderful to see the Doctor Who is constantly changing. And
Hmm.
I'm very happy about the improvements with it being more inclusive.
Hmm.
And I think that we are in for a fun ride once this next season starts going. So,
Indeed. Agreed. Well,
yeah.
thanks for
Okay.
having
So,
me.
yes. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Galen. And where do you like to be found online? Where you like to interact? Would it be mostly Substack?
Substack is the greatest one for me. I just love it so much. It's just been really great. But I am also, of course, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, all under the name Gaelynn Lea,
Yep.
GaelynnLea. And then I have a website, violinscratches.com. That's got like a calendar, all of events. But Substack's probably the most active place that I am hanging out right now online.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone, check out these links below. We're going to put links to every single location that Galen just mentioned, and thank her. Send her a message and tell her thank you for discussing this Davros Gate thing. And Galen, I'm elated. Thank you thank you so much.
Thank you. Cool. Take care.
Okay. Okay. You
Thanks.
too. Have a nice afternoon.
You too.